don't know. We need to find out though. Yang Gang, hey, we're looking for somewhere to set up. Let's go find out where he's going to be speaking. That way? Go that way.
By the way, he's going to be here.
So, we're walking through a huge crowd right now. Just got interviewed by New York Times. That was fun. Where do we go?
I don't know.
Nobody's here yet.
All right, look.
People look at him like he's good at it. He's not.
Check it out.
He has no feeling. So he doesn't know what he's doing.
Making our way.
Yeah. I haven't seen him yet.
I like to see it go.
We are trying.
That was so sad.
Sorry, brother. Excuse me. All right. So, what's up, Yang Gang? So we are trying to find out.
What's that?
Okay. Steve, where will he be speaking at?
Right there.
In the
Right
corner?
around this wall right here.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm trying to figure out where we can squeeze in.
Okay. We are trying to get into position, Yang Gang.
Well, I don't know if you want to drink this big. That's going to bump for 10 minutes.
We are.
How you doing?
Yeah. Okay.
Right here?
The corner here facing.
Oh, good. Right there. Right there.
Yeah. I need to get right here. All right, so
He's going to stand right there. Right there. Yeah, right there.
so I'm wondering.
We're in good rating.
Maybe
Maybe, but I'm sort of like,
Where to send this? Where do we send this?
Big, it can go underneath anywhere, back anywhere. Put it back in there in that corner. Huh? Well, I need to be. If he's going to be talking here, I need to be like here, but she's got to be able to get through.
Oh, no, in the corner right here.
Excuse me.
apparently he's going to speak like right in this area.
All right,
So good luck.
right?
To hang you from the rafters.
I know, and it's dark in here, so the stream is.
I wish he, they probably don't have a microphone for him. Great.
Thanks. Somebody said I had a nice beard.
Set our stuff back there in the corner. Don't forget it.
All right. So it is dark in here. So Yang Gang, this is so crazy because
It's really dark in here.
and that's what I said. It's really dark in here, so the stream is like probably coming through dark.
Yeah. We're all packed in like sardines right
It
now.
is so nuts because we were standing outside here.
Sorry. This is gonna be tough, y'all.
So make sure you're tweeting this live stream out, and we'll make sure that we get you a look. I'm gonna turn this camera around for a second. This place is packed to the gills, y'all. We just left the event for those of y'all that were on the last live stream, we just left the event.
Who do we need to thank? Thank you.
Michael Knoyer, thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you, Michael. Again,
Very much.
thank you so much.
So,
And thank you, MJ.
MJ, thank you so very much. Let me turn this camera around.
Coming over these people.
This, oh my gosh! All right, so
We're so low.
where do I start? So for those of y'all who were on the last live stream, make sure that you tweet this out, get it out there. We just left the Andrew Yang event over there, and it was crazy packed. Y'all saw it, right? So we left and we came over here, and we get around to where we're supposed to be, and there's a line that's waiting because the doors haven't opened. So there was already a line waiting. So these aren't the same people. This isn't the same Yang Gang. Okay? And we're standing out there in the line, and then we get interviewed by the New York Times, y'all. We just got interviewed by the New York Times. Again.
Sorry.
So
If I was a
that
server
was...
here, I'd be so pissed off right now. Just saying. They gotta squeeze through all of us.
And there are people shifting positions. And we're trying to get, look, y'all, we got y'all, what's his name? And they won't bring you a dark stream like this.
Oh yeah, this is dark and seedy.
And they were still over at the other event.
Yeah.
So y'all make sure you tweet this out, get some likes on it, get some love on it. Make sure you thumbs it up.
How's
Like, share,
it coming
subscribe.
through? Besides being dark.
Besides being dark,
How does the stream look?
Is it coming through okay? Alright, so this place is now packed to the gills, y'all. Again, full of Yang Gang.
And others undecided.
And undecided. So this is so crazy. Yes, we just got interviewed by the New York Times. And
we told them what's up.
we told them what's up. We told them what's up. There is, the Yang Gang has exploded.
Sorry, I haven't been able to say hi. I've been running around like
So make sure y'all tweet this out.
Hey, how are you? Yes. Yeah.
This is
Breathing right where we are.
this is
Thank you.
But did you see the back end?
this is crazy in here, y'all.
Yes.
No, it is literally. I mean, it is literally like packed everywhere. There are people just standing.
They not have more likes than this.
And it's crazy that, and everybody's talking about Andrew Yang. It's all Andrew Yang.
All here for Andrew.
Ooh, it makes me so excited, y'all. I'm telling you, the polls are wrong.
They need to release some polls.
Tell the Yang Gang that the polls are wrong.
Well, let me tell you what's even worse. Not only are some of the polls wrong, a lot of the polls are non-existent right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And we believe very strongly that if the early states polled the way that they have it much of the last 6 months, not only would he be qualified easily for the debate, we think he'd be a super qualifier because we think he'd be at 7% or higher in some of the early states. So we need some polls to come out between January 2nd and the 10th. Our moles tell us to expect that, and we're going to keep putting the pressure on the DNC to be fair in the way that they're adjudicating this, because right now it is impossible to get 4 polls, 5% or more, if there aren't 4 polls.
Right? At least give us a shot.
There have literally been 0 polls since they announced the new qualifications.
That's crazy.
It's been 44 days since we've had an early state poll. And as I told you yesterday in Salem, but I'll add a day now, the amount of time since the last early state poll and today is the same as a rabbit could get pregnant, give birth, and the bunny would be 12 days old. That's how long it's been.
Yeah, and you know, it coming from the Republican side, the conservative side, you get over here to the Democratic side, and to me that looks like they're doing it intentionally. You know,
Well, whether or not they mean to,
whether or
it's
not
matter.
they mean to.
Listen, we got a problem in this country across party lines of distrust in institutions, basic institutions, and that's everything from the Federal Reserve and higher ed. 3 minutes. All right, there you go. To our elected officials and government. And America can't be at its best if too high a percentage of people don't believe in the pillars of the structure that we have.
For sure.
And when you backdate qualifying standards that seem to neatly fit some of the candidates and neatly not fit others, how do you expect people in a world that already is filled with distrust of institutions to not think this is the latest example worthy of distrust? So we need a number of polls to come out this week, and then we're not saying lower the standard. You know, other candidates in other months have said the standard's too high. We're saying hold us to the higher standard, but have enough polls that we can have a chance to meet that higher standard. We think we've done the work. We know we did great in the last debate. There have been no polls since the last debate.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And the DNC knows it, and they're trying to find a way to deal with it, and we'd like them to deal with it.
For sure. I'm going to let you get started. 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Thanks, guys.
There you have it, Yang Gang. Mr. New Hampshire politics himself, Steve Marchand. It's crazy. We want the polls to come out too.
Once I screwed up and did that.
And we got y'all front row seats here. Man.
Unless they move Yang.
Unless they, no, I don't think they will.
Well, where's Steve going? Isn't he
He'll
supposed
probably
to
stand
talk?
up on that. Maybe he'll stand up on that thing.
That would be
He should totally stand up on
I
this
feel like
thing.
Steve would be right here.
Would you rather be over
So,
here?
thank you, Nexus. We appreciate that.
So we thought while we were here we could maybe get a little snack and a little drink, but it is so busy that that's just not going to happen. There's just no way that's going to happen. So we'll try for the next one. You are?
Look, Mama Yang Gang's always thinking about food.
Y'all, I am hungry. I
So,
haven't eaten since
yes.
pizza for breakfast.
Make sure
Okay.
y'all tweet this out. Listen, y'all, we are in Concord, New Hampshire.
You know, in North Carolina we say Concord.
In North Carolina we say Concord. But apparently up here it's Conquered. Concord.
Concord. Did you guys sign it? Oh, hey! I hear them.
All right, I think we can
Oh, what's this song?
Gang Gang.
Yes, you gotta sign it.
Should Andrew stand on that thing right
Oh,
there?
yeah, he's gonna.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. All right. So
Oh, I don't need two pins, do I? I can't see in the dark. I can't. I just
look, Aunt Corey is watching. She said, "Don't make fun of us."
Is Zeph and I watching?
Is Zephaniah watching? Is little Yang Gang watching? So Andrew is going to be right here.
I'm happy you're in here. I just see my face. You just turn my face. It's so dark. I couldn't even tell.
Which means he's going to have to come through here.
Or he's gonna come through the back way.
Or he's going to come through the back way.
You might get actually better
How's that?
in the next room. I don't know.
All right, if maybe we could bring the music down.
Sorry.
Wow, look at that, the power of the microphone. How's everybody doing tonight? That sounds like a Yang Gang to me. There you go. How many people here would classify themselves entering the building as Yang Gang?
Yeah!
All right, how many of you would classify yourself, you're all among friends, as Yang Curious? That's a lot of curiosity. We have a name in the Yang Gang for folks that cheer when asked if they are Yang Curious. We call that soon-to-be Yang Gang. I'm Steve Marchand. I'm an early adopter of Andrew Yang. I met him in January over a cup of coffee in Manchester, my hometown, and I liked him immediately. I used to be the mayor of Portsmouth. Some of you that follow state politics may know that I ran for governor for the Democratic nomination last year. This just in, I did not win. If I had, I'd have burly security around me. You'd also have a better state to live in. But we'll get back to that sometime. For now, we got to get ourselves a better country to live in. And I suspect that's what brings us all here tonight. So, back in January, a friend of mine said, you should meet this guy, Andrew Yang. Have you heard of him? And I had heard of him, but I will be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about him compared to people with, fancy names and titles in front of their names. So we sat down and I realized within minutes that of course we were going to get along real well. This is a 44-year-old, first-generation American, father of two who really likes math. Holy crap, that's me! Of course I'm going to like this guy. And then we got into the policy about how he was the only candidate I had heard in this cycle, or frankly, any time in the last several cycles, in either major political party, who had seemed to identify in outcome-oriented ways, quantitative ways, steely, factually driven ways, where the major challenges of this country came from, why our political leaders on both sides of the aisle either were unable to see or choosing not to see the nature of those problems, and was offering actual solutions with, and I know you will appreciate this in this room, with math attached to them. We like that. Cheer for math, please. Right? Oh my God. There are some, I have not seen this kind of excitement. I can finish that sentence. My wife is a Kansas City Chiefs fan. She was that excited when she saw, yeah, I know. Jesus. She's not here, all right? Okay? You calm down a little bit. It's all right. We're going to beat Kansas City in the divisional round anyway. Whatever. Then we'll go beat Lamar Jackson. We'll go back to the Super Bowl, win a 7th time. Rinse and repeat, baby. That's what we do in New England over 20 years. Anyway, here's the thing. In May, I got to introduce Andrew at a New York City rally. It was a thrill. I looked at the crowd, and I saw thousands of people in a rainstorm. This is before Andrew became, Andrew Yang. And it looked like the face of America. It was young, and it was diverse. It was energized. It was people who had voted for Trump and Sanders and Clinton and Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, and a lot of people who had chosen not to participate in the process anymore. Either had never done before because they thought the system did not apply to them, or had given up because they thought it would have, and after many efforts had decided it wasn't for them either. And that was discouraging until I saw that there was somebody that got them uniquely energized to get back into the system. Are there people here that feel a little bit like that tonight?
Yeah.
Are you looking to get re-energized, to get re-engaged in the system to make this a better place to live?
Yeah.
Are you ready for a candidate who's going to make you feel good to vote for something for a change, rather than simply against things for a change?
Yes.
Are you ready for somebody who is youthful, but has practical experience, who represents the diverse future of this country? Somebody that looks like Andrew Yang?
Yes.
Are you ready for somebody who likes telling the truth?
Yes.
Are you ready to have somebody that says this a lot? Hey, don't tell anybody, but I voted for Donald Trump, and I'm supporting Andrew Yang. Do you have friends like that?
I am that.
Okay, I know I got friends. I got friends like that.
That's right.
Is there anybody here who is somebody like that? Just you and me? Just you and me? All right. Here's the thing. At that rally, there was a guy with the "Make America Great" shirt on. I asked him, I'm like, were you aware that you were just at a rally cheering for an Asian man who wants to give $1,000 a month to every American over the age of 18? Are you at the correct event? And he said, I am. And I said, what brings you here? Donald Trump, 2016 supporter. He says, here's the thing I realized after 3 years of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the wrong answer to the right question. And Andrew Yang is the right answer to the right question. Now, what the hell's the right question? Here it is. How come in a country where GDP is at record highs, where the stock market is at record highs, where unemployment record lows, inflation record lows, despite all these numbers that we have been taught since the day we could count, meant that we should be feeling really good about our personal situation, about our neighbor's personal situation, about the future of our economy and our country. That despite all of these things, the guy said, how come it feels like pretty much everybody I know is walking an economic tightrope with no net underneath? That is the reality of the American economy. It's funny, Donald Trump said when he was a candidate that the unemployment rate was BS, that the actual unemployment was much higher than the numbers Barack Obama was talking about. Fast forward a couple of years. Donald Trump says, you need to re-elect me because that unemployment rate is so friggin' low. This is the reality. You won't hear this a lot. Donald Trump was kind of telling the truth the first time. I know. Somebody just fell down. That's all right.
He didn't know what he was saying.
It is time for somebody who is asking the right question, providing the right answer. How many folks here 2 years ago even knew what the hell universal basic income really was?
I didn't know.
How many of you know what UBI is right now?
Yeah.
How many of you believe that we can have a future where capitalism doesn't have to begin at zero anymore?
Yeah.
Who believes in an economy with a tax structure where the reason why Amazon and Facebook and Google, they're not paying no federal taxes because they're breaking the law. I got breaking news for you. They're not paying federal taxes because they are following the law. The law is broken. We are aware of it. And it is time for a president who is willing to say that out loud, doesn't take their money, by the way, and then has the courage to propose a progressive solution. Now, I got friends of mine who kind of crap on UBI sometimes. They say it is a libertarian Trojan horse. It's kind of funny because a lot of my libertarian-leaning friends are running to Andrew Yang, but so are some of my Bernie Sanders friends. By the way, I'm one of them. I'm a 2016 Bernie Sanders supporter. Still love the guy. Still believe he believes that America can be a better place. We're not haters in the Yang Gang.
That's right.
But I believe that we can do even better than what he was offering in 2016. And we can do it in a way that builds a durable, lasting coalition. Here's the reality. I don't want to get too grandiose, but he's running behind, so I got time to kill. 1860, Abraham Lincoln. 1900, Teddy Roosevelt. Then we went FDR. Then we went Ronald Reagan. Whether you liked or did not like what those people did, the reality in the history of America is that about every 30 to 40 years, we reach a place where we need transformation. Transformation in what the next 30 to 40 years of America will look like. In between those moments, right before we hit the transformative election, we have a messy moment. So, in 1976, it was Jimmy Carter. And right now I am telling you, Donald Trump does not represent transformation in this country. He represents transition. And while Jimmy Carter and Donald Trump couldn't be more different people, even to this day, Jimmy Carter does so much good for so many people. He has more energy when he wakes up as a 96-year-old than I do the entire day. This is a great America. But he did represent a transition period in America's history, just as Donald Trump does. I believe that on the other end of this messy period in America's history, it will not look like an America that decides that the reason many of you and your friends suffer economic angst is because of immigrants. It is not. How many of you are immigrants, the children or grandchildren of immigrants? Right there. My folks came down from Quebec in the 1960s, like hundreds of thousands of New Hampshireites have, seeking a better way, seeking an opportunity to work and to get ahead. And those streets on the west side of Manchester that used to have the mailboxes that said things like Malchin or Martineau, today they say Martinez. And that is awesome. That is the next generation of the same story that has made America great since its inception. America at its best. Andrew Yang, the son of immigrants from Taiwan himself, is to me in some ways the ultimate statement we can make, the personification of what we believe as a country the next 20 to 40 years of America can look like. It is not just words. It is the living embodiment of the best of America. Young and diverse, the son of immigrants, an entrepreneur, somebody who's innovative and is unafraid. America at its best is unafraid. And so, as I believe he gets close, and I'm hoping somebody will tell me when he's really close. And by the way, let me tell you this. Last night in Exeter, I had to introduce Andrew Yang. It's a pleasure, anytime. It's more of a pleasure when it's less than 32 minutes. And I know the audience feels that way. All right? They told me he was going to be there in 10 minutes. I promise. And 32 minutes later, the crowd received Andrew Yang. The good news is it was worth it. I asked the crowd last night before he arrived because I completely ran out of material about 22 minutes in. I asked them, I said, how many of you here were already Yang Gang, already converted? And about 15% there, man, you are so Yang Gang, and you know it. That's what I thought. Okay, only 15% of the folks in Exeter last night said they were already Yang Gang. The other 85% said that they were some form of Yang curious. Many of them came up to me and said, I was for Elizabeth Warren. And I have tremendous respect for Senator Warren. But they understand that the wealth tax is not the best way to deal with the inequality facing our economy right now. Many countries in Europe and North America and Asia have tried to attack the same problem that we're trying to attack now with the wealth tax. And it turns out they evaded that wealth tax. It does not generate nearly the revenue that you think it will. And that what did most of those countries do once they realized the policy didn't work? What did they go to?
VAT tax.
The value-added tax.
Yep.
If we do a rate half of what all the countries in the Western economies do, half the rate, it will pay for the lion's share of the freedom dividend. $1,000 a month for every American 18 and older. And part of what attracts people across the ideological spectrum, progressive, libertarian, conservative, moderate, unaligned, is the idea that we can simultaneously make two statements. One, that we can say that we need to attack income and wealth and educational and opportunity inequality head on in a quantitative way, that it is corroding America from the inside out. And at the same time, you can believe that you know better what to do for you and your family with $1,000 a month than the government does.
For sure.
Now imagine you got kids turning 18 and they want to go to college. Now let's say you got a husband and a wife and you got a kid turning 18. Now I'm not a math major, but I feel like I'm surrounded by a lot of them. At least you're wearing it. Oh my God. You know what? That's 36 grand a year. You can pay for your kid's college. Bang, I just cut to the chase. Here's what I'm really here to tell you. The next president of the United States just entered the building.
That's right.
Are you ready for the next president of the United States?
Yeah!
Because I'm out of material, baby. Ladies and gentlemen, my man, Andrew Yang.
Let's go, Andrew!
Hello, Concord, New Hampshire. Let's get up to Steve Marchand. Let's give another round of applause. I guess so. You got it? I think so. All right. Yes. Also want to thank Watson, the owner of this great establishment, for opening it up for us all. Let's give him a round of applause. Make sure we get an extra drink because it's New Year's Eve, New Hampshire. New Year's Eve. Thank you for celebrating it a little bit early with us tonight. I've been back in the state for a couple of days. I went to high school here at Phillips Exeter Academy. How many of you knew that? Oh, no. I know, it's Exeter, I know. My first trip here, I said, hey, does Exeter count? And people were like, oh yeah, it counts. And I was like, oh, good. After that, I went to college in Rhode Island, and then I was an unhappy lawyer for 5 months. I left to start a business. It's one reason why I appreciate small business owners really everywhere I go. How many of you have started a business or organization or club or list or anything like that? So if you have your hands up, you know a couple of things. Number one, it's so much harder than anyone lets on. And number two, when someone asks you how it's going, what do you say?
It's going great.
Great. Everything's always going great. My business went great until it failed. My parents told people I was still a lawyer because it was easier for them. But I had been bitten by the bug, just like some of you have been bitten by the small business bug. And I worked at another company and then another, and then I became the head of an education company that grew to become #1 in the US and was bought by a bigger company. That time was 2000. No, that doesn't deserve applause. Don't worry about it. Now that was 2009. That was 10 years ago. How many of you were here in New Hampshire 10 years ago? How was 2009 here in this part of New Hampshire? Because that was a really tough time in a lot of the country. I thought I had some insight as to why the economy had crashed, why some of your friends, at the last stop I was in Derry, there was a young guy who was 14, and I asked about the financial crisis, and then he raised his hand, and I was like, how the heck would you remember the financial crisis? You must have been like 4 or 5 years old at that time. And he said that his parents had to sell the house. And then I said, then you would remember, because who's not gonna be impacted by that if you're 4 or 5 years old? It was a really tough time in a lot of the country, and I thought I knew in part why the economy had crashed, because a lot of the wannabe whiz kids I'd gone to Exeter and Brown and Columbia with had headed straight to Wall Street and helped create derivatives and exotic financial instruments and mortgage-backed securities that had crashed the economy. And I thought, well, that's a train wreck. That's the opposite of what you would want people to do. So I thought, well, let's try and give people something better to do. So I quit my job, and hats off to my wife, because when I met my wife, yeah, thanks, Evelyn. Because when I met my wife, I was a pretty normal guy. Certainly, she thought if she knew I was going to run for president, she would have run the other direction. But that had gone well. But I quit my job to start a nonprofit. Raise your hand if you worked in nonprofits. How about if you volunteer for a nonprofit? You should just pretend and raise your hand to that one. Yeah, I'm a good person. There was that one time. So I quit my job to start a nonprofit. I called rich friends and I asked them, do you love America? And they said, what does it mean if I say yes? And I said a check of at least this amount. And then 12 of them said, I love America for that amount. And I spent 7 years running that nonprofit. We helped create several thousand jobs around the country in Detroit, Cleveland, St. Louis, Birmingham, New Orleans, Baltimore. I was traveling the country and I was learning so much. I was brought up in upstate New York. I went to high school and college here in New England, so I had never seen the Midwest and the South. My organization was so successful that I was honored by the Obama administration multiple times. I got to bring Evelyn to meet the president, so my in-laws were very excited about me that week. Like sending around the pictures to their friends, being like, oh, look at this. My daughter did okay. But I was staggered by the gulf between different parts of this country, where if you fly between Michigan and Manhattan, or St. Louis and San Francisco, you felt like you were crossing decades or dimensions or ways of life and not just a few time zones. But I was still surprised when Donald Trump became our president in 2016. She just let out a groan. How did you all react when Donald Trump won?
Oh, God, no.
A collective groan, you were like, oh no. I mean, there was a lot of shock, disbelief, despair, but we all have family members and friends and neighbors who celebrated his victory. It's the truth. To me, it was a giant red flag that tens of millions of our fellow Americans decided to take a bet on the narcissist reality TV star. That's not business as usual. That's something very, very historic. Scary, historic. If you were to turn on cable news today, why would you think that Donald Trump is our president?
Republican Party.
Russia, Republican Party. Go ahead, shout it out.
Social media, because
Facebook.
social media is known to be photo manipulated.
Facebook, racism, Hillary Clinton, emails,
Corruption.
Comey, all sort of mixed together. But I'm a numbers guy, New Hampshire, and I went looking for an explanation in the numbers.
God.
And I found one. I found the explanation. We blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs over the last number of years. And where were those jobs? Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Iowa, all of the swing states that Trump needed to win and did win. It happened right here in New Hampshire a little bit earlier. You all lost over 12,000 manufacturing jobs, primarily in the northern part of the state. I have been to those towns, and they have never recovered. After the plant or factory closed, the shopping districts closed thereafter, people started leaving, the school shrank. The same story played out in communities in Ohio, Michigan, Western Pennsylvania. And if you doubt this as an explanation, there's a straight line up between the adoption of industrial automation in a voting area and the movement towards Trump in that area. This is the explanation in the numbers. And unfortunately, what we did to those manufacturing jobs is not stopping there. How many of you have noticed stores closing where you live here in New Hampshire? And why are those stores closing? Amazon. Amazon. $20 billion in business getting sucked up by Amazon every single year. How much did Amazon pay in taxes last year? Zero. That is your math, New Hampshire. 20 billion out, zero back. 30% of your stores and malls closed for good. Most common job in your state is retail clerk. Average retail clerk's a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $10 an hour. When her store closes, what's her next move going to be?
Unemployment.
For $69 a week.
No. And it's not just the retail stores that are closing. Eventually, it's going to reach jobs like call centers. When you call a customer service line of a big company and you get the software or bot at the other end, you do the same thing I do, which is you pound 000, say human, representative, and try to get someone on the line as quickly as possible, right? Like, raise your hand if that's what you do. Oh yeah, we all do that because that software is miserable. You're like, oh no, it's so dumb. It's dehumanizing, actually, trying to interact with it. But in 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hey, Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, efficient, maybe even a little bit sexy. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work at call centers right now making $14 an hour? How many of you have seen self-serve kiosks in a fast food restaurant like a McDonald's? They're going to be in every location in the U.S. by 2021, and then they're going to move to the back of the house with the robot burger flippers and the fry cookers. It's not just the CVS's, the grocery stores. Food service and food preparation, the 3rd most common job type in the United States. The rubber's really going to hit the road when the robot trucks hit the highways in earnest. How many of you know a truck driver here in New Hampshire? It's the most common job in 29 states. There are 3.5 million truck drivers. A robot truck just transported 20 tons of butter from California to Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago without human intervention. Why did they transport butter? I have no idea. Really. But if you Google robot butter truck, you will see this story. What is that going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal every single day? This is the greatest economic transformation in our country's history, what experts are calling the 4th Industrial Revolution. When is the last time you heard a politician say the words 4th Industrial Revolution? Probably just now, right, New Hampshire? And I'm barely a politician. So when I went through the numbers, I found that we're in the midst of this incredible transformation. But my first move was still not to run for president of the United States. Instead, I went to our leaders in Washington, D.C., and I said, what are we going to do to help our people manage this transition? And what do you think the folks in D.C. said to me when I asked them this?
What training? What?
I don't know.
Number 1, Andrew, we cannot talk about this. Number 2, we should study this further. And number 3, we must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. And that sounds pretty good. But I said, look, I checked out the studies. You all want to guess how effective the government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers in the Midwest who lost their jobs?
They're not effective.
I'm anchoring you low because it is low, 0 to 15%. They're total duds. And when I said this to the folks in D.C., they said, well, I guess we'll get better at it. But if you have these plants closing and the workers losing their jobs and these complete wastes or failures of retraining programs, this is not something that goes gently in that community. If you look at the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest, half of them never worked again. And of that group, half filed for disability. And you then saw surges in suicides and drug overdoses in those communities at unprecedented levels, to a point where now our country's life expectancy has declined for 3 years in a row. First time in 100 years that has happened. You have to go back to the Spanish flu of 1918, a global pandemic that killed millions, to find another time in American history where our life expectancy declined this way. It's unusual for life expectancy in a developed country to ever decline. It ordinarily just keeps creeping up because you get richer and stronger and healthier, but not in the United States, not today. Instead, it's gone down and down and down because suicides and drug overdoses have each overtaken vehicle deaths for the first time in history. And I know here in New Hampshire, this is one of the epicenters of the opiate epidemic.
Yes.
It is not just New Hampshire. 8 Americans are dying every hour. So this is what the folks in DC said. They said, hey, I guess we'll get better, and then they just went back to their lunch. And one person in DC said something to me that brought me here to you all tonight. He said, Andrew, you're in the wrong town. No one here is going to do anything about this because fundamentally, Washington, D.C. is a town of followers, not leaders. And the only way we will do anything is if you were to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads.
Woo-hoo.
And I said, challenge accepted. I'll be back with a wave in 2 years.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
And here I stand before you. I'm either 4th or 5th in polls to become the Democratic nominee.
Yeah.
We raised $10 million last quarter in increments of only $30 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. And we're going to raise a lot more than that this quarter.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I mean,
right.
we announced a number. We're going to beat that number by a mile. So this is the people-powered grassroots revolution to take back our government and make it work for us. And one of the reasons why I love being back in New Hampshire so much is that this is one of the only places in the country that democracy actually functions the way it is intended.
Woohoo.
There you go. That's right.
Yeah.
Most of our fellow Americans look up and they see the government pipes clogged with millions and millions of dollars of lobbyist cash, and they think there is nothing they can do about it. They are generally correct. There is nothing they can do about it. But you can. That is the magic of this place. You have the future of the country in your hands. I did the math. Do you know how many Californians each of you is worth?
How many?
1,000 Californians each. Watson, what is the fire code in this establishment? Let's say there are 100 of you. I think that's a little low. That's like 2.5 football stadiums full of Californians. That's the power in this bar tonight. You're just going through your days, living your lives. You don't walk around thinking that you're some sort of super hero or super voter that has the power of the future in your hands, but you are and you do. It's wonderful. The question is, how are you going to use that power? How are we going to flush the pipes clean? I said before that Amazon, this $1 trillion tech company, is paying 0 in taxes. You're not going to believe this, New Hampshire, but it's up to you and you alone to change that. You're the only ones who can change it. We have to rewrite the rules of this 21st century economy to work for you, to work for our people. Now, if you're here tonight, at some point in the not so distant past, you heard there's a guy running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. And I know the first time you heard it, you were like, ha ha, that's a gimmick, that's too good to be true, that will never happen. But this is not my idea, and it's not a new idea. Thomas Paine was for this at the founding of the country. He called it the citizens' dividend. Martin Luther King fought for it in the 60s. I sat with Martin Luther King's son, and he said this is what his dad was fighting for when he was killed in 1968, the guaranteed minimum income for all Americans. 1,000 economists endorsed it in the 60s, and in the early 80s, one state passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that?
Alaska.
And how do they pay for it?
Oil.
And what is the oil of the 21st century?
Technology.
Technology, AI,
Mining.
big data, self-driving cars and trucks. A study just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that study? How many of you got your data check in the mail?
Not really.
We laugh, but where are the data checks going if our data is so valuable? Facebook, Amazon, Google, and the mega tech companies that are paying 0 or near 0 in taxes. Do you see the game, New Hampshire? We're getting sucked dry by these megacorps that are paying nothing in taxes back into the system, we're looking at each other saying, where the heck is the money going? Why is the American dream dying before our eyes? If you were born in the 1940s, congratulations if you're born in the 1940s. That's a pretty good track record already. You're out at a bar. Yes. New Year's Eve. But if you were born in the 1940s, there's a 93% chance that you're going to do better than your parents. That's the American dream. That's what drew my parents here. That's what we've all been brought up on. If you were born in the 1990s, which I can sense is some of you, you're down to a 50-50 shot, and it's declining fast. That is why Donald Trump is our president today, because we can sense that instead of being lifted by the progress and innovation of this era, we are being left behind. This $1,000 a month, we put it into our hands. We get a tiny sliver, our fair share of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every Facebook ad, eventually every robot truck mile and AI work unit. We can generate hundreds of billions of dollars with a giant up arrow attached to it very, very quickly, immediately actually, day one. And then we put $1,000 a month into your hands. Where are you going to spend the money in real life?
Amazon.
Oh, a little bit of it's going to go to Amazon for sure. You're going to buy an extra blender, but a lot of it's going to stay right here in Concord, right here in the state. You might get an extra beer. You might get those car repairs you've been putting off.
Amen.
Daycare expenses, Little League signups, local nonprofits and organizations and religious institutions. This is the trickle-up economy, New Hampshire, from our people, our families, and our communities up. And this would work. This would make us stronger, healthier, mentally healthier, would give our kids a real foundation for the future. And it's particularly necessary in rural parts of the country where the towns are being depleted, the main streets are closing, and the kids feel like they have to leave in order to access the kind of opportunity they want. That's playing out here in New Hampshire on a certain scale. It's playing out all over the country. The numbers are very clear. I'm a numbers guy. There are a few mega cities and regions that are just soaking up more and more of the value, and more Americans are being left out. That's what fueled Donald Trump's rise.
Amen.
We have to reverse it. You have to reverse it. Only you can do it. We have to start measuring our economic progress by actually how you are doing, how we are doing. And the clearest example I can give is from my own family. My wife is at home with our two boys right now, literally right now. I just got a text. And our older son is autistic. How much does her work count at in our economic measures every day, every year?
1,000%.
Zero.
What?
Yeah, parents, caregivers, nurturers, all zero.
On their level.
Coaches, volunteers, zero. Artists, often zero or close to zero. Journalists, trending towards zero. I mean, it's true. Over 2,000 local papers have gone out of business because they used to rely upon classified ads. They all went up to Craigslist, and then the paper is closed. You know what doesn't work as well when you don't have a local paper? Democracy, because you don't know what the heck is going on. And that's not just me spitballing, that's in the facts. Again, I'm a numbers guy. If you don't have a local paper, your voting becomes more polarized and things don't function as well.
Approval voting.
So we are having the most important things in our lives zeroed out progressively. And it's turning us against each other. It's driving us to record levels of stress, anxiety, depression. It's not just the student loan debt. This is what you all have to rewrite. We need to start measuring our progress by how you are doing. Instead of these phantom GDP and stock market and unemployment numbers, which are bunk, and I can spend some time explaining how they're all garbage, we should instead be measuring our progress by your health and life expectancy, your mental health and freedom from substance abuse, whether you can retire with dignity, how our kids are doing, clean air and clean water. As your president, I will actually shift GDP to these measurements.
Yeah.
And if you think that's impossible, we made up GDP 100 years ago. And even the inventor of GDP said this: He said this is a terrible measurement of national well-being, and we should never use it as that. And here we are 100 years later following it off a cliff. Robot trucks will be great for GDP and corporate profits, but they will be terrible for us. So this is the message, this is the vision that you have to take to the rest of the country I can't believe early next year, I'm going to say early next year, it's literally like
Tomorrow.
It's like 5 hours from now or whatever.
Tomorrow is 2020.
That we can distinguish between economic value and human value. That we can actually value ourselves in a way that's independent of what the market is saying. Because the market does not care about us. The market does not care about my son. The market doesn't care about elderly Americans. It's going to be up to us. We have to take back control of this government that has been lost to us for far too long. Washington, D.C. is right now the richest city in our country. Think about that for a sec. What do they produce? They didn't actually produce Twitter. But that is what we, Donald Trump said he wanted to drain the swamp. I want to do something. He wasn't off in that ambition. I want to distribute the swamp. So what do I mean by that? Why do you have agencies and employees in one of the most expensive cities in the country? Why don't you try and shift an agency to Ohio, to Michigan, to Florida, to New Hampshire? You'd bring the costs way down. People would be excited to have the jobs, and I would argue the government would function better because the people would actually be living in normal places and not in the DC bubble. This is the vision that you have to make a reality. It can't happen without you, New Hampshire. I love you for it. I know you're gonna, it's beautiful. You're all a little bit spoiled by the fact that you have this power. Raise your hand and tell us how many presidential candidates you've seen this cycle. So this would be fun. You know what I mean?
All of them.
Again.
All of them.
like all of them.
With pictures.
And one thing I love about you all is you actually compare us not just to each other, but to presidential candidates from campaigns past.
Amen.
I've had people say to me that Barack Obama stood in this living room, or even Jimmy Carter stood right where you're standing.
Yep.
That's the power that you've built up over these years, and you know which way the country has to go. Donald Trump became our president by saying he was going to make America great again. And what did Hillary Clinton say in response?
So really great.
America's already great.
Amen.
I know it's been a long 3 years, but that did not work because many Americans knew that the problems were real. The problems were real, but Donald Trump's solutions were the opposite of what we need. What were his solutions? He wanted to build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the old jobs back. New Hampshire, we have to turn the clock forward.
Yes.
We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible. We have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves and our work and our value.
And our children.
And our children. And I am the ideal candidate for that job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you very much, Concord. You may not know this, but math is an acronym, and what does it stand for?
Make America think harder.
Make America think harder. That's right. That is your job, New Hampshire. You're going to move this country not left, not right, but forward. And we're going to make history together in 2020.
Let's go, Andrew.
Thank you. I love this place.
Hold on, guys. I have instructions. But we want to make sure Andrew does not blow an ACL in the next 30 seconds. Here we go. Oh, nor me. Shoot. I'm older than Andrew. All right. Thank you for being here. 6 weeks from today, you know what to do. You need to vote for Andrew Yang.
That's right.
We got to make some history. But for now, we got to make some history in terms of speed selfie. I want to thank Watson and the team here at Chuck's Barbershop because they're very generous by having us here tonight.
Yes, thank you.
How generous? They got a private party going here that we're supposed to get out of here at 7. Like, for real. So, like, for real. So what I'm telling you is, if you got a tab to pay, pay that damn tab. We'll get you a freedom dividend, so in a couple of years you can pay for all the tabs.
That's right.
If you want a selfie, the line is behind me in an actual photo room. You get in line back here. There are folks that will get you lined up, and then you're going to leave from there and go down the stairs and outside the back way. So make sure you got your stuff with you. If you want a selfie, get it there. Pay that tab, get in the line, head on out, and let's clear this place up by 7 o'clock sharp. Thank you, guys. Happy New Year.
The crossover that's been waiting to happen. How you doing, dudes?
We are here and it's happening.
So you guys going to the party later tonight, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, I've been wanting to say hi, and it's been like just running from venue to venue. Oh, you going to the next one? Manchester? Okay, cool. See, I need to, get a teammate, because trying to do all this on your own is like killer. It's like almost impossible.
I'm just figuring out which way.
I'm sitting there and I'm holding it. I'm having to hold it up like this.
Oh, yeah, and I was wondering,
because I didn't want to bring the tripod.
Oh, yeah, because of the space. Yeah, dude, this place is tiny, but it's beautiful.
But it's packed.
Yeah.
And this is all different Yang Gang from the one that was at the last one.
Exactly.
Not the same people.
No, 100%.
And it's crazy. We just got interviewed by the new.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know what? You guys would be perfect for that. I think you're like the poster child of why people need to vote for Andrew Yang. That you looked and you said, hey, this is someone who's not necessarily just a label that I want to follow. It's ideas and thoughts, right? I mean, you guys were Trump supporters. At least you said you were. Were you both? Yeah. So the fact that you looked at the situation and said, this is the right choice and not just this is an R or a D, I think is exactly why he's the best candidate.
And I think that's the majority of Americans. I think the majority of Americans are like somewhere in the middle. And they're like, we see the corruption on both sides. It's not just the Republican side or the Democrats, it's both sides.
Exactly.
So, let's get rid of the shit.
And so, are you guys going to try and run back there? Or are you?
We're probably going to head to the next one and try to get set up.
Okay, cool. I'm going to run back there. I always shoot them, but let's hang out. I want to buy you guys a drink at the party if you guys drink.
Absolutely.
Okay, definitely.
Hey,
I
we just
appreciate
got bought
that.
a beer. What?
No, I would love to hang out and talk for a bit. I keep running around and I feel like it's like I'm only here. So you guys cover all the East Coast stuff, and that's where I miss out most of the time. This is like a special occasion because it's New Year's Eve, and that's really the only reason I'm over here. But most of the time I just hang out West Coast. So like the number of times I get to come over here and see like the East Coast Yang Gang is very few and far between. So I definitely want to sit down and like chill for like 5 or 10 minutes. You guys are
If we can get 5 or 10 minutes.
I know. I guess that's fair. But I think after the ball drops, it should be more relaxed. So
We'll make it happen. But once that ball drops, it's 2020, right?
that's true.
It's game time.
Yeah, and where are we at? Where are we at with the what do you call it? The fundraising? You know?
Anybody know where the fundraising is at? I think it was at 3.2 million.
Really? See, isn't that incredible? We were trying to get to 3 million. And for days I was like, are we gonna make it? Are we gonna make it? And
Vote for the win.
We also donated to the stock making.
No, I haven't done that. Unfortunately, I already have Robinhood and all those other apps that they try. I did the stock banking when they first came out, but not for Andrew Yang, but for myself. In other words, I signed up and like got all the stocks and shit. But I have maxed out, so at this point, I couldn't stop paying if I wanted to. But I appreciate you guys doing that and everything else you guys do. It's incredible, and I love how you guys, I love the interviews you guys get on your channel because you've gotten. Well, no, not just me. I'm talking about with Zach and Andrew. Really, I mean, you guys have built a relationship with them, and because you've been in early and like seen them so often, you get like the
camera, man.
Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh.
Somebody broke a hip.
Someone broke a hip. So no, I just appreciate it because, like I said, I started you guys started what month would you say? April?
May? I don't know. Somewhere back there.
No, but truly, you guys, Fred and others who started so early, Paget even, were the people who inspired me to go around and start doing this stuff. Like I saw what you guys were doing, it was like, we need more of this. We need to, no, like legitimately, like I saw the things you were doing and how you were like communicating like to an audience that wasn't getting reached by Andrew because of the mainstream media and otherwise not getting the message out. And then, I mean, beyond that, I guess you just have your own circles. I mean, I'm sure that given that let me put it this way. I have a lot of Democrats who hate Trump as friends, but that's because I'm a Democrat grew up, born and raised. I imagine that you can pierce through the veil much easier than I can, because I show up like, hey, I'm a Southern California boy, you know what I mean? Versus you guys saying, I'm actually from the area. I'm from the East Coast, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it helps. It helps for sure. I think people just like us because we're a little bit country.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's all.
It's that charm?
I don't know. I don't know why they like it.
Nah, dude.
You know, what Andrew says makes so much sense. So, like, if you are a person who bases your existence on logic, well, logically, the numbers say you should probably vote for Andrew Yang because he sees all the shit that's coming down the pipe. And why aren't we helping homeless people? Why aren't we giving homeless people $1,000 a month? Why am I struggling working 2 jobs to pay my bills? Why am I so fucking broke? And I work all the time.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way.
100%.
Most Americans.
Why do teachers, why are they making so little? Let's give everybody a raise.
I think so.
And if we got to give Donald Trump $1,000 a month too, who the fuck cares?
Dude, he's gonna grab on that $1,000 as fast as he can. You know he will.
And he's gonna pay for it too in his companies that he owns.
100%. No, for sure.
So whatever.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, had you heard of UBI before, Andrew?
3.3 million. No.
3.3? Oh, okay, that's interesting. So I work in IT, so that's been like a thing that I've followed for a long time, but it's just, long time really, like 4 or 5 years, not that long. But I just mean, for some time now, I thought of the concept, I was like, oh, that would be really cool, but it'll never happen.
It's so
It's never
weird
gonna
coming
be
from
possible.
the conservative side that I never, that's just something that they don't talk about.
Oh, sure. Oh, sorry.
So shout outs to all you champions of UBI for sure.
And so after today, are you going to be covering all the other events that are happening like post New Year's by any chance?
If I can help it.
Okay, guys. So I'm actually going to have to leave on the 1st, but Grassroots Yang Gang on YouTube is going to be covering all the events post New Year's. After the first event tomorrow, unfortunately, I got to go catch my plane and go back to Southern California. But make sure you head over to YouTube and check out Grassroots Yang Gang and subscribe, because that's how you're going to be able to get the coverage that unfortunately I can't do. And of course, there's lots of other creators too who do very good work as well. But right now,
weird. We got 2 streams going.
No, we cross the streams. Yeah, it's a very they love that. And actually, that's the thing they love the most.
There you go, guys.
That's the thing that if there's anything that I get asked out for more than anything is to cross the streams. In fact, no, not at like from the moment I showed up, I see when you said my name at the first event, I was like, holy shit, I want to go say hi. And everybody in the chat's like, go right now, go talk to them, hurry up. And I was like, guys, I'm trying to, but I have to run in the snowstorm to the next event. In fact, how far did you have to drive? Did you drive at all yesterday?
Man, look, check it out. So we left before the last event last night, right?
Yeah.
Because it would have been like,
2-hour drive.
yeah, it was supposed to be a 2-hour drive back to Vermont, and it ended up being a 4-hour drive.
Oh,
Even
really?
with us not going to the last event, because we literally were going 45 miles an hour the whole way.
Wow.
Still occasionally sliding. Like
Oh, so you went all the way home between the
Yeah,
events?
because we got little Yang Gangs at the
Oh,
house.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, so it
usually
sucked.
he comes with us.
Yeah.
We're not able to
Yeah, I know. And in fact, one of the things, so I met a couple from Vermont up in an event in New York City, and they were talking about how great the food is in Vermont, because apparently, I guess there's a lot of locally sourced stuff.
It's great. Dude, I had one of like the best grilled cheese sandwiches. Oh my god! It's like, how do you make that grilled cheese so freaking good?
And that's what they were telling me. They're like, just simple stuff. You just eat a carrot and it's better. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what? So like, that's actually, I've never before really wanted to travel to Vermont. And now I'm like, dedicated. Like, I have to get there sometime in the near future. I'm like really excited to visit. I'm a big food. I like eating yours. And the fact that was like enough to like convince me. I was like, I gotta get up there. So what city is it?
We are actually probably if he's just about 5 minutes away from Bernie Sanders' Vermont office.
Oh, really? Wait, that's not. Oh, so that's not in Burlington.
No, it's east of Burlington.
Okay. Because like I only know the location of Burlington, and so I was thinking that you had driven all the way up there. Although on the flip side, so I grew up in Texas. Yeah, that's the thing. I was about to say I grew up in Texas where you can drive for like 15 hours and still be in Texas. So I imagine like I'm thinking like, oh man, you know, and now I'm thinking, oh, on a normal day, it probably takes you like an hour.
Where we live?
Oh, really? How long? Oh, wow. Okay, that is quite a bit. Like, dedication. Have you seen that, guys? This has like been going for now 7 months of dedication, following Andrew Yang, spreading the message. Again, if you are going to be here for the next 2 days, wanting to watch what Andrew's doing, you need to check out Grassroots Yanking. Please go to their YouTube, subscribe. Do you guys have a way to like join your thing or anything like that? Like, how does it work on YouTube? I do Twitch, so I don't know what.
Oh, yeah. Like, share, subscribe.
But there's not like a join, like where you can like donate to help support the cause.
Yes,
pay for some
absolutely.
gas,
They do
something like that.
They have super chat.
Okay.
You know that they can do on YouTube or whatever.
All I'm saying is Russell's telling me he's working 2 jobs and still doing all this work. So if that's the case, then we need to support people like him who are willing to go above and beyond.
Yeah. I need to correct that. No, I was.
Oh, he was.
I
Sorry.
was. Now I just do the YouTube channel because getting Andrew Yang elected is the most
Then
important
even
thing
more of a reason
that we can do.
That just increased the reason why we need to go.
And we came up here to New Hampshire, early voting state, to yang everybody that we can, y'all.
Well,
That's our job.
I
That's
just
what
have a
we
very
do.
generous chat. Lots of people like to give to people that I meet. Like, we'll go out to dinner and they'll pay for it, things like that. And so what I'm telling them, anyone who is having the holiday spirit, the New Year's spirit, please, instead of trying to give me anything for like the next week, give it to Grassroots Yang. We need to support these guys. We need to make sure that they got the gas they need to get to the next Andrew Yang event. Andrew's going to be in New Hampshire a lot, and I can't come here. He's going to be coming back,
Yes,
what, the like 9th to the
he'll
12th?
be back here tonight. Y'all go listen. We are all yang all day. And if y'all have not checked out our channel, we get some exclusive interviews with Andrew.
And that's actually the best part. If you haven't seen it, this is the best part of the Grassroots Yang Gang. They get behind the scenes like no one else does. And, you know, it's just the relationship you've built and everything that you guys have done. So what do you like? I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to try and catch him, but I want to buy you guys a drink tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, guys. We'll see you very soon.
That was really cool.
That was such a high praise.
Yes.
That was so sweet.
That was really awesome. Aww.
Thanks, y'all, for being here.
We love the Yang Gang, and apparently the Yang Gang loves us too. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for anybody that's going to be new to our channel, thank you. Shout outs to Yang Stream.
And get this off the screen. Okay, got it.
That's crazy. And Yang Gang, you know what? It's really awesome. Thank you, D Jones. We appreciate that so much. That does. It really helps us get back and forth through these events. Excuse me. I'm a little dry, but somebody's gonna buy me a beer in a little bit, so that's really awesome. So we thank you, Yang Gang. We appreciate each and every one of y'all that come to this channel. Some of y'all have been following this channel since day one. You know, it's really nuts. Zephaniah,
Well, hi,
Mrs.
Zephaniah.
Hi,
If you're watching,
Zephaniah.
I love you. We'll be home later, okay?
Love you, little Yang Gang. I miss you.
Go to bed for Aunt Corey, okay?
I know we're not gonna be home. I don't know. It's gonna be late. You're gonna be sleeping hot. But I love you, and we'll see you when we get home. So we're also gonna be going to this next live stream, little man. So make sure you tune in. Thank you, Aunt Corey. Shout outs to you. Off to the next one.
Off to the next one.
Off to the next one. Thank you so much, Yang Gang. We love you. Maybe the next one will have better lighting.
Yeah.
Yang Gang.
See you soon.